Good morning and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. I want to try some of these little sound bites that I've got. Let me see if you guys can hear it out there. I think that is so cool. I did not know these things were in StreamYard, and I was playing around with it the other day, and I was like, that would be pretty cool to play on a Monday. So I'm trying it out. And thank you so much for joining us this morning. Cajun Lady, she says, good morning, brothers and sisters, with her red, white, and blue hearts. And Spud McKenzie says, good morning. Good morning to you both. And thank you so much for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News. Well, I hope you could hear it, Cajun Lady. I see you out there laughing. And Patty Cakes, thank you so much for joining us this morning. She says, Grand Rising founder, Grand Rising to you too. She says, love it. Well, I'm going to try. I'm at least give it a shot, right? Because like I said, it's just me. So, I can't always do everything. Oh, wow. We have someone, Jay from London. He says, what's up from London? Well, wow. Thank you so much for joining us here from across the pond, as they like to say. I hope you guys are doing well over there and always praying for you, especially for individuals in London. Um, you guys, in my opinion, not to get off track or derail from the show, but you've been under attack a little bit in your home country and being told that you can't fly um, your country's flag. And I think that's horrible. And so, it's really teaching us a lot about, especially with our older generation. Today's my birthday. I'm 54 today. And just knowing that we have to hold on to the history, right? Learn it and then pass it down to our children so we don't lose it, right? And it's okay to be patriotic for your country. Like, what? What are we talking about? Right? So we have to always keep that in the forefront. But again, thank you everybody for joining me this morning. And we're going to start off our morning with Kids Corner. So here we go.
Neighborhood, there was a boy named Joseph. Joseph had a dream of building the tallest tower with his building blocks. Every day after school, Joseph would work on his tower. He faced many challenges, but he was determined to succeed. Joseph's parents saw his determination and encouraged him to keep trying, no matter how many times the tower fell. Joseph tried different strategies and learned from each mistake. His patience and persistence began to pay off. One day, after many attempts, Joseph finally built the tallest tower he had ever made. He was thrilled. Joseph's friends, inspired by his persistence, also decided to tackle their own challenges with the same determination. Joseph's determination showed everyone that with hard work and perseverance, they could achieve their dreams too. Determination and perseverance can help you overcome any challenge. Never give up on your dreams, no matter how difficult they may seem.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is to, definitely inspire our young viewers that are listening and also our older viewers, right? That are listening. And Jay says, greetings and best wishes to you. May you have all the good things coming to you. That's awesome. Yeah, especially this time of year too. We're going to get a little bit into that. It's that time of year, you guys. And a lot of times people are happy and they're having fun and they're joyful. But there are some people that go into the holidays and they're not having such a great time, right? And we need to make sure that we are inspiring those around us that might be a little bit down during this holiday season to just give them some encouragement. There's a little bit, sometimes they need a little bit of an extra portion of encouragement. And with that, we're going to read our how to honor God with our body. So God, please guard our thoughts and guard our mind. God, help me to fix my thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. So I will think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. God, please protect my ears. Help me listen to your voice. God, help me to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. God, protect my eyes from sin's damage. God, I make a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully. God, please protect my mouth and help me to speak life. God, set a guard over my mouth. Lord, keep watch over the doors of my lips. And God, help me to serve generously. God, help me to do good to everyone, and especially to those who belong to our family in the faith. And God, please, you know, look over my reproductive organs and please protect me and help me to honor you, God, with purity. God, help me to honor you with my body. And God, please protect our feet and help us to walk in your path. God, let your word be a lamp for my feet and a light on my path. So I truly hope that everyone is inspired by that this morning to just really, honoring God with our body and just, you know, making sure that we stay focused. And Jay says, Happy birthday to you. Thank you so much. And I'm getting late for work. And as I was driving, I just got pulled over by a cop now. And I think I'm okay to leave and go to work. Oh, well, you have a great day. And please stay safe. And Jay says, stay happy and beautiful. Thank you so much for that. And Cajun Lady says, amen and amen. So let's pray for Jay, right? The Jay is doing okay. Right? Out there in London, let's not drive and text and be on our phones, right? We got to stay safe, and sometimes even when I'm on my phone, there are times if I think I'm going to be a little bit long-winded on my phone, I'll just pull over. I'll just find like, a little parking lot or, sometimes on the way home and I'm like, let me just kind of stop, take a break here, get situated. And then I just keep going and put the phone down, but it can be distracting. So just get to wherever you're going safely. And Cajun Lady says, happy birthday to you. Thank you so much for the birthday wish. I really appreciate it. So today I'm 54. So I am half a century and 4 years. So it's been amazing living on the planet for about half a century and the things that I've gotten to see and experience. And interestingly enough, there were things that were happening when I was born that I didn't realize that were happening until now. And we'll get into some of those uh, timings and planning that people had for us. And I think um, there were things that people had um, set up for us to destroy our country. But you know what? We're still moving strong and we're still moving forward. And I'm so grateful for that. And Beginners Fitness Journey says, happy birthday. Thank you so much, Beginners Fitness Journey, joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News. And thanks for that birthday wish. And Jay said, glad that I could make you laugh. Yes, you did. Thank you so, so much. Oh my goodness. Where am I from? I'm talking to you from the great state of Georgia, not from the country of Georgia, but the state, because sometimes people get that mixed up and it does get interesting, right? So with that, we are going to get into our first piece of news. Usually we do have Conscious Outlaw, who brings us our sports recap for the weekend. He should be joining us here shortly. And when he does, I will bring him up. But I just need to check really quick just to make sure that I didn't get any messages from him. Just know on the show, this is definitely it's a news program, it's a podcast, but it is also a family gathering. And I am my own best friend because I'm the only one here. Let's just say that I am producing, hosting, broadcasting, just doing the whole thing, just making it work, as they say. And so I know that, again, Conscious, he'll be joining us here shortly for our sports recap. But until then, let's get into some of our news. So over the weekend, I'm on X and I came across a post from Riza Islam. So let me share that with you guys. Oh, he says, OMG, you're from Georgia. So that's why you talk around like every day is a country music video. Oh, no. No, I live in Georgia, but I grew up in Southern California. So I'm a little bit more of a coastal girl, as they like to say. But yeah, I mean, I do like country music too, but I will respectfully say I haven't grown up with country. I like singing country music, like Patsy Cline and different genres like that. But yeah, nah, nobody's kicking out the dog or, you know, um, baling hay or anything like that. No, no, a little bit too bougie for that. Sorry. I am. I'm not above it. I'm just not doing it. Right. So I'm not going to pretend. But I wanted to get into this. It's not so much an article, but what Riza Islam said, he's like, wow, the CDC just admitted finally after all these years, once the studies that were being hidden have come out evil. And what he's talking about is that he reposted a post he did. He said the CDC now admits vaccines can cause autism, specifically with the claim vaccines do not cause autism is not an evidence based claim. So, after years of fighting and exposing, yes, they actually did. This class action lawsuit will break records and every parent of it. So, here is a screenshot from the CDC, and I've got the link, so we'll get into that. But right here it says the claim vaccines do not cause autism is not an evidence based claim because studies have not ruled out, let me just click on that, the possibility that infant vaccines cause autism. So, in essence, the CDC, when they were, I don't want to say backed up against a corner, but when people would say, hey, we think, and this is just general public, right? We think that there's a correlation between autism and vaccines. Well, the CDC would push back and say, well, there's no evidence showing that. Okay, well, then do a study, right? This is why we have science. This is why we do studies. This is why we have you literally here in place, CDC, right? And you fall under the FDA, and the FDA falls under HHS, right? You're supposed to be here to help us. Okay. Mm, let's see. Sorry, I got distracted. I got a comment here. It says, basically, you're a peach that learned to say, oh, hello. You're the only person I know who can sweet talk someone and cut them off in traffic at the same time. Oh, I would hope. I would hope not. I would hope I would not do that. Um, but see, let's go back to the autism study. I like to try to, read comments, as you guys know, during the show so we can have a full conversation. So here I have the website up, and this was actually as of November 19th. So they just posted this. Now, if anybody's been following the CDC for several years, they pretty much have always been on autism. I'm sorry, vaccines do not cause autism. That's always been their stance. But now they're finally coming out and saying the claim vaccines do not cause autism is not an evidence-based claim because studies have not ruled out the possibility that infant vaccines cause autism, which means they never did the studies while making this claim, while also telling parents you need to keep this vaccine schedule, even though parents were not informed, truly informed, right? Which is extremely harmful when you think about it. And in my opinion, why would you do that to these parents, right? Why would you purposely put them in a position to harm their children, right? And having no evidence, good or bad, right? So they could truly say, well, you know what? I want to wait until my child's like maybe 4 or 5 before I start injecting any chemicals into their body because I want to make sure that they have a developed immune system before I start tampering with it, right? No one's really had this formal scientific conversation, but now they're having it, and they have to have it because it's being found out that they've never been doing the scientific studies at all. They've just been saying stuff. And Jay says it's time to wake up to the truth. Autism is not. Oh, you're saying it's not caused by vaccines? Okay, that myth has hurt families, misled communities, and distracted the world from what autistic people actually need. Well, here's the thing. I hear where you're coming from, but what is your truth based on? What scientific evidence do you have? That's the problem. And that's what the CDC is saying. They keep making this claim that there's no correlation, but then they have no evidence that there isn't a correlation, if that makes any sense. It's one thing to say, hey, the sky, I don't think the sky is blue, even the sky is blue, right? But you have evidence, and the reason why you have evidence is because there are rays and hues that scientifically make the sky blue, right? So you can scientifically go back and say, this is why the sky is blue. And that is a problem with the CDC. And the Cajun lady says CDC is for profit over well-being. And that could very well be, right? Because we do know that the CDC is also a profit center. They also do patent a lot of these vaccines. And a lot of people, I'm just saying, it is what it is. And it's one of those things I would like for it to be a lie, but it's not, right? And I want to actually go over to my grok where because I actually had this, actually had some of this information pulled up. Yes, I do a lot of research in grok, as some of you well know that have followed me here for a while. And the reason, I do some of this research is because I am a paralegal. I have been involved with individuals that Okay, so you're talking a little fast. You said so. According to the CDC, studies have shown that there is no link between receiving vaccines and developing autism. Okay, I hear what you're saying, but they just said this is their website. This is not me just making it up. They just said the claim vaccines do not cause autism is not an evidence-based claim. So they don't have any evidence to back up their claim. They're saying this. I'm not making them say it. I hear where you're coming from. Major nationwide cohort study in Denmark found no increased risk of autism in children vaccinated with MMR mumps rubella. Now, is that MMR mumps rubella the same one that they give to people in America? Because you got to understand, each one of those ingredients is also made by a sub-manufacturer who makes those manufacturers sub-manufactured. Okay, I've already studied this as a paralegal, and what the vaccine courts have also said is that if you cannot actually pinpoint the actual ingredient that caused the harm, your claim is dismissed. And I'm just making it short for you. So that's Denmark. That's not America. There are actual vaccines that are banned in Denmark that they still give to these children here in America, right? So my question would be, what is the mixture of that MMR compared to the one that are given to kids in America? And definitely, you say this is a nationwide cohort study. Please send me the link because I will go through it and I will study it flat out. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for being a part of the channel. I'm just saying, because that's how I get down over here. I'm not just going to take you at face value. I am going to research, I am going to study, and I'm going to bring it up because it's important. Okay. Period. Now, let me see if I can go back to you. And see, here's part of the problem, and I won't spend too much more time on this, but the biggest part of the problem is that people do not have access to the vaccines. And Patty Cake says, don't read this on air. Listen here. Do not disrespect our foundational Black American News reporter. Oh, we giving warnings. We're shutting it down. So you have expertise in autism and neurodevelopmental research. That's great. That's wonderful. I still need links. I still need information. So if you want to send me that information, you can send it to unfilteredvisionnews@gmail.com. Period. Since that's who you are, because I will verify and I will find out exactly who you are. And if your name is J. Parika, are you Indian? Just asking. Just looking at the name. Um, because guess what? Everybody's doing their research. No one wants any humans to come to harm. Period. Right? So I didn't sit up here and say no one should get vaccinated. I'm just saying people should have more informed consent because that's the biggest part of the problem. We need more informed consent because we're not given that here in the United States. We're just told, just inject your baby with this and shut up and go home. But see, a lot of times people have lost their children, literally. Babies have died hours after being vaccinated. I personally took care of a little boy who was vaccine injured, and I went through his medical records. So you're not sitting here talking to somebody who doesn't have personal experience on the other side. Okay. So, yes, the inserts that I'm referring to, called package inserts for vaccines, these are detailed documents that come with every package vaccine, and they're written by the manufacturer. What I haven't seen, and we might get into all of this more in a different day because I only have so much time, is what I haven't seen is that actual information given to the parents. They get a fact sheet that basically says, and I reason I know this because I have children that got vaccinated, right? It's not like my kids didn't get vaccinated, they did. But the thing about it is, we were told your child might get a fever, you might they might suffer some aches and pains, massage the area. But when my children were being vaccinated, they were maybe getting like one or two vaccines at a time. Right now, these kids are getting like 4 or 5 or more at one sitting. And to me, that's extremely dangerous. And I'm like, okay, if the vaccines are supposed to be better, why aren't there fewer of them? If that makes sense. Because in my opinion, let's just say my kids are, let me see, my oldest is 33, and then my second oldest, she just turned 28, and my youngest, she's 26. So just from that time span, you would think, and I think vaccines might have been maybe, what, I was say 12, and then the boosters might have made them 15, right? You would think with technology that they should only have to get maybe 5 vaccines now, right? Because the vaccines would better equip their immune systems for anything, right? For measles, mumps, rubella, chickenpox. What else was dealing with? Diphtheria, hepatitis. I'm just naming some of the bigger ones. But like I said, you would think by now they wouldn't need as many. Now I think the vaccine schedule is well over 30. Why are there so many more that they're having if the technology is better? That's pretty much what I'm saying. Why do we unfortunately have more children suffering with autoimmune diseases, right? And even autism. And some of these children, luckily they've figured out some of the physical aspects, gut bacteria, mercury, different things that have contributed to certain types of autism in certain kids. They've been able to kind of, naturopathic, get them back to where they need to be. How did we get here with better technology? That's all I'm saying. It's really all I'm saying. And Jay says, I agree with you and I stand with you. And I'm really proud of you. Thank you so much for that. Because, you know, like I said, I'll take the opposition, but definitely send me the research that you found because I want to look more into it. I really do want to see like what's in there because a lot of time, even with these patents, some of the stuff that we don't see that they register with the trademark and patent office to actually get these vaccines to market, you would be very surprised and shocked about the chemicals and what the chemicals can do and how harmful they can be to humans, but they still get packaged. Don't ask me how they're doing it, but some of that stuff gets packaged and it gets put out in the general public. And that's where we need to say as a general public, hey, I know you think this is great, but we need more studies. We need more proof, you know, and we need you to take your time in this as opposed to just getting it and rushing it to market and using us as the guinea pigs, so to speak. And Katie's lady says, I don't trust vax anymore. I've seen so much harm from vaccines. Yeah. What's happening in the US is atrocious. It is. It's very sad. But like I said, I'm really hoping with what the CDC has done right now will actually open up a broader conversation, will actually bring out individuals in the scientific community to actually start doing the studies, right? Really doing the studies, not just saying, hey, we don't think there's a correlation, but saying, okay, we took a group of so many people, we followed them for so many years, and we had another group that didn't get vaccinated at all. We followed it for so many years, and this was the outcome. That's all the general public has really been asking for. And I don't think it's egregious to ask for it. But I think we should. It's one of those things. I really do think we should go that route where we go, hey, we just want the information. Nobody's trying to, you know, rain on your parade, so to speak. We just want to see it. Now, with that, we're going to transition, and I wanted to talk a little bit about this. It's a newly, it's a new piece of legislation. I don't even really know if it's legislation. It's just kind of strange to me. This is just to me, right? I gotta reshare my screen because this is going to be actually in my feed. Let's see, for my X account. So this, here we go. Get it here so you guys can see this.
Just showing this from the Hill right now. This is a measure to condemn socialism. The vote is still being tabulated, but of note, the four leading Democrats in the House voted with Republicans to condemn socialism, yet 96 Democrats voted no. Mm-hmm. So those are the Democrats who voted with Republicans, Jeffries and Catherine Clark, Pete Aguilar and Ted Lieu. So that vote is in, and the big meeting happens in a couple hours, White House, with the Democratic Socialists out of New York meeting with President Trump today. Just showing this from the Hill right now. This is a measure.
Okay. So, someone asked the question, like, what exactly does this resolution do? Like, okay, what? So do you want to pass a resolution? So a resolution really, it's not a bill. It's not even really a piece of legislation. It's kind of weird. It's very, in my opinion, it's very symbolic, right? You want to pass a resolution condemning socialism. Okay, well, people condemn socialism all the time. But now we're in the house just to have it on record that we condemn socialism. This is laughable. Okay. How do you think schools are funded? That's socialism, by the way. Social Security, our welfare system, our firemen, our police officers. Shall I go on? Shall I continue? Oh, wait a minute. That's right. The federal government. The main crux of socialism is the fact that we all pull our money together and then it's spread out. Now, are we looking at, where socialism, where some people are like, hey, because that's communism. Everybody has to be equal and have equal resources. But socialism is basically putting it all together and spreading it out amongst the masses. Y'all weird. So here's the bill, or I'm sorry, here's the resolution. Gotta make sure I get my verbs right. So, denouncing the horrors of socialism. What? We all know this is horrible. Why does it need to be here? Just strange. So they really said, whereas socialist ideology necessities in concentration of powers that has time and time again collapsed into communist regimes, totalitarian rule, and brutal dictatorships, whereas socialism has repeatedly led to famine and mass murders and killing of over 100 million people worldwide. Okay, like I said before, I won't call it straight socialism, but we have quasi socialism, and it is used in our country. Like I just explained to you a few of the examples of what we use it for. Okay. So I was just like, I asked, Grok to summarize it, and it's denouncing it. They gave the sponsors specific name, not detailed in summary. There's no co sponsors, right? And so we can go back here to congress.gov and just say, so here's the co-sponsors to the bill. Here's the people who sponsored it. Representative Salazar, Maria Salazar from Florida. She's in, yes, 27th district in Florida. Now, this is the same individual that was talking about giving people not amnesty, but she wanted to make it so where people that were here illegally could stay here, right? Not get amnesty, but stay here and work amongst us and basically work their way to citizenship, which is still amnesty. It's like she doesn't want people to get deported that have been here, maybe more than 10 years and they have not filed for citizenship. It was really weird. She's a Republican. She's in Miami or the Miami area, I should say, of Florida. And I'm like, you're disgusting. Like, what are you trying to do to our country? Like, what is really going on? So she sponsored it. But here's the thing, there were 63 people that co-sponsored it. So it wasn't like she was the only one on board with this. And I get it. You're going to denounce socialism. Okay. And so we've got a lot of Republicans in here, 63 of them. Okay. I'm at least Stefanik. Okay. All right. Yeah. I'm just like, okay, got it. But again, what's the purpose? And most of these people that co-sponsored it are Republicans. So it wasn't something that was bipartisan. It's extremely partisan, right? And so I went, obviously ChatGPT, and I was just like, okay. All right, so for text, this concurrent resolution denounces socialism and opposes the implementation of socialist policies in the United States. The resolution is brief, focusing on declarative statements without operational details, which basically means basically it's symbolic, and that's just my opinion. So the resolution appears in searches for socialism. Okay. Again, we use socialism in this country. We utilize it. We just don't call it socialism, right? We call it taxes. We call it, hey, we're going to use your taxes and we're going to fund these different areas of your local government, your federal government, right? Social programs. We're just going to use your tax dollars, but we're not going to call it socialism. Okay. Whatever floats your boat makes you happy. So I was like, what is the true purpose of this legislation? Right. And the true purpose is to denounce the horrors of socialism, is a concurrent resolution introduced, like I said, by Maria Alazar as a non binding measure. It has no force to law, but serves as an official congressional expression of policy. Its core text declares, resolved by the House of Representatives, that Congress denounces socialism in all its forms and opposes the implementation of socialist policies. Okay. Like the key point. I was just like, what? The legislative progress. True per the true purpose beyond the rhetoric. Okay. While the resolution's overt purpose is to formally repudiate socialism as a failed and dangerous ideology, reaffirming anti socialist sentiment in Congress, its deeper intent appears to be political signaling and partisan theater. Basically, like I said, it was very symbolic, right? So it's sponsored by a Republican from Florida, a state with a large Cuban American exile community historically opposed to Castro era communism. It leverages Cold War era narratives too. Okay, so that's the area of Miami this person is from. And a lot of people are Cuban down there, so they've escaped communism and socialism. So I guess some of them or their relatives historically have, lived through socialism and they see what it can become. And it's a Dukester and Mark from the Soil. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and reposting the stream. So, yeah, mobilize the Republican base, force Democrats into a political trap, right? The vote exposed divisions within the Democratic Party, with 98 members, mostly progressives like Representatives Japala and Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, voting no. Okay, so critics on the left, including Representative Jim McGovern, a Democrat from Massachusetts, called it a poorly written message bill that wastes time on symbolic gestures rather than substantive issues like budgets or healthcare costs. Opponents argued it conflates democratic socialism, Nordic style welfare states, with authoritarian regimes and could alienate U.S. allies. Huh? Why would it alienate allies that we don't want to deal with socialism? It's our business. We don't care what they're doing. Just saying. This, and I think maybe they did it because it's just very telling of where people are, how they voted. So I asked, who were the key members that voted for or against the bill, right? So of course you got the Republicans that voted 199, but 46 voted against it. So they all didn't vote in unison. I'm just saying. And then the Democratic Party was kind of split. So they had more people that voted against it, but they still had 86 people that voted for it. So they had 285 people for it, 98 against it. Oh, I'm sorry. And 47 Democrats of Republicans didn't vote. Sorry. Yeah, they just stayed out of it. Like what? And Cage's lady says it would be nice to see them actually get some work done, right? Codify the executive orders. Okay, right? Get some real legislation done. Let's do this, right? As we clap and go, hey, let's do this. So yeah, you guys. I mean, so crazy, so crazy. And let me again share my screen because I guess I was talking and I was like, they're not seeing this. I always forget that when I have it specifically on a link page. That's all you guys are seeing. I'm just chatting away. She says, we've seen enough virtue signaling. Absolutely. But yeah, as you can see here, 199 Republicans voted for it. 46 of them didn't vote. 86 Democrats voted for it, right? To denounce the horrors of socialism. And 98 of them voted against it. So what are you talking about? Like, this is symbolic as it is. It basically should have had all yeses unanimous, right? Saying that yes, socialism is something that is horrible. We should never have it here, and we're going to denounce the horrors of it, because that's what it was explicitly saying. Okay, so the 98 of you, like, what were you thinking? You know, this is going to blow up in your face, right? During midterms, and I think that's why some of this is being done. Just my opinion. So of course, you know, Mike Johnson, he was one of the people who voted yes. Obviously, that socialism is horrible. And Thomas from YouTube says it's virtue signals from both sides, right? Dems signaling, right, to their base Republicans, and to theirs, right? Exactly. And define socialism. We will get to that, because that's crazy. And then we got Byron Dog. We have the usual suspects. We'll just say that. And then here's people who voted no. So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she voted no. Ilhan Omar, Pramila Jayapal, hopefully I'm not mispronouncing her name, Rashida Tlaib, Ro Khan, Jasmine Crockett, and Summer Lee. So these are just a few that voted against it. And Jasmine Crockett said she called it a messaging bill, wasting time on symbolism. Okay, I get it. And I get where they're coming from, because like I said, it's very symbolic, but it still lets people know where you stand. And that was the whole point of the bill. Yeah, there are certain times, especially in, I think, and this is in the political arena, they'll accuse each other like, hey, this person believes this person believes, but you really don't have any proof. Now there's a congressional record of proof. So you stepped in it, you walked in it, not thinking about your political career for after. Because now people can throw it up in your face like, no, you agree with the horrors of socialism. And you agree with all of the things that socialism can bring. And you can't fight against it because of how you voted. And it's congressional, it's forever. Okay. We'll be talking about this 100 years from now. I'm just saying. It says we have people starving in our streets and we need to worry about virtue signals like this. I'm just telling you, it's going to come back to that, because it's going to come back to the people that you vote for. Because now Jasmine Crockett can't say like, well, we care about everybody. You sure about that? Well, how do you care about them? Right? Because again, congressional record. So I'm going to say define socialism. Yeah, if I could spell. And I'm going to ask another question, and how it is used in the United States. Because it is used. So we're going to get it straight from Grok. So socialism is an economic and political system in which the means of production, factories, lands, infrastructure, natural resources, etc., are owned or regulated collectively either by the state, by workers directly, cooperatives, or by society as a whole, rather than by private individuals or corporations. The goal is to distribute wealth and resources more equally, to prioritize social welfare over private profit, right? So, I mean, how should I say, for example, I guess I could use Cuba for an example, because that's one of the biggest ones. There, everything is run by the government, and everybody gets things through the government. It's not like they can do things on their own, right? So classic Marxist socialism for full public ownership of all means of production, transition to a classless, stateless, communist society. Now that's Marxism, right? State socialism. The government owns and runs most industries. Soviet Union, Cuba, Venezuela under Hugo Chavez, and then Maduro. Democratic socialism achieves socialist goals through democratic elections and gradual reform rather than revolution. Private property still exists, but is heavily regulated, and major sectors, healthcare, energy, education, are publicly owned or universal. Nordic countries, Bernie Sanders' stated vision. And that's something that Bernie Sanders has talked about a lot and what he would like to see. And Thomas says, for example, Ace Hardware doesn't own a location. Instead, the owners buy the building, then are able to get products through a catalog of dealers and sell at a cheaper price. Okay, that's one example. And then occasionally it says socialism is more government control. Right, exactly. And Thomas says, so we should denounce democratic socialism. Well, the thing is, we kind of have it. I mean, we're kind of in it. Like I said, we have a like a quasi socialist system here, but we'll get to that. Um, Market socialism. Worker cooperatives or public entities compete in a market. Yugoslavia and Tito modern proposals like Medicare for all combined with regulated private um, enterprise. So, how the word socialism is actually used in the United States. In America, political discourse, the term rarely retains its strict academic meaning. It functions more as a flexible rhetorical weapon than a precise descriptor, right? So, conservative Republican usage of the word socialism, any expansion of government involvement in the economy or social welfare, right? So, examples routinely labeled socialist by the right: Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, public schools and universities, the Affordable Care Act, student debt relief, Green New Deal proposals, universal health care, progressive taxation, and wealth taxes. So, historical equation: socialism equals communism equals Stalin, Mao, Castro, Venezuela, mass murder, and economic collapse. This is the sense used in House Resolution 58, a blanket condemnation of anything perceived as left of center economic policy. Now, progressive democratic usage: Bernie Sanders, AOC, DSA. I'm not sure what DSA is. A Democratic Socialist of America. I guess that's what that would be. Reclaim, sorry, reclaims the term to mean Nordic style social democracy, right? Universal health care, tuition free college, strong unions, paid family leave, aggressive climate policy, and funded by high taxes on the wealthy. Like I said, it's like we're going to take everybody's taxes and lump them together and then distribute them. It's like, what? Yeah. And Thomas says, so we should denounce democratic socialism. We do what's with healthcare then. And then you say, yeah, because after I'm reading it, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like we already have it. It's just how we're not saying that we're doing it, right? But we are doing it. Now we may not have tuition free college, but there are trade schools that are free to the general public. So are we all socialists now? I'm just saying. It's here. It's been here for a long time. Emphasize on the wealthy. Look up the effective tax rates of the Rockefellers. Oh yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I haven't even gotten to that whole thing. I'm probably gonna have to get to that tomorrow with the with Tell It All Tuesday. He says, no, the yep was the Republican saying everything left of center. Gotcha. So, what trade schools are free? Well, I did it in my broadcast, I'd say maybe almost 2 weeks ago, where the Trump administration They've actually put forth trade schools that are free in certain states through, I want to say, workforce development in certain states. And you can actually go to a trade school for free. You can. Um, I will put the link of it again here in the show, but I did it, like I said, I did a deep dive on it a couple of weeks ago. So we have that. It's not like it doesn't exist. So no, their tax rates from the 50s and 60s. Okay. Yeah, tax rates were a lot different. People could actually keep up with the cost of living, and then somehow after the 70s, all that changed. I won't spend too much more time on this, but as you can see, I was just trying to see practical reality in the United States. The U.S. operates on a mixed capitalist economy with significant social democratic elements, and it does, right? Like I said, it happens. Private ownership dominates, right? 85 to 90% of the economy. Major socialist style institutions already exist and enjoy broad public support. Social Security, like I said, it's like, what are you talking about? Um, Someone says, because we started to cut taxes for the wealthy. Yeah, and see, also around the 1900s, it was Woodrow Wilson that actually inducted the 16th Amendment that we so graciously, you know, get to live under now, where the federal government gets to take part of our tax dollars and use it. So I'm not saying it tongue in cheek, but I am. The 16th Amendment is a socialist amendment because it's literally taking tax dollars from American citizens and using it for the federal government. And there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, we could, you know, ratify the Constitution, but that would take 36 states, and that's how they got the 16th Amendment in there anyway. Because, see, we used to fund our country off of tariffs before we started to fund our country off of the backs of American citizens. And those are just facts. It is what it is. You might not like it, but it is what it is. Occasionally says the rich will transfer their wealth into a foundation, therefore never being taxed on their wealth, while they'll continue to destroy the middle class. We all know middle class will be the ones harmed financially. Oh yeah, that's where it usually falls. And we need to go back to 100% tariffs to stop using Americans as the world's tax servants. Yeah, it would be nice. It would be nice. But I mean, that's a lot of what's happening and where we've been for a long, long time. But because we don't always know, right? Because they never really teach us this in school. These are things you have to learn outside of school. This is why we are where we are. So Medicare, Medicaid in 1965, the government funded health care for seniors and low income, public schools, education, and land grant universities, government ownership of Amtrak, TVA electricity, the postal service, large portions of land, um, BLM national parks, and this is like the Bureau of Land and was it Bureau of Land Management? Yes, and municipal utilities, cooperative structures, credit unions, REI, rural electric co-ops. Yeah, so yet no majority party advocates nationalizing oil companies, banks, tech giants, or retail the way 20th century socialist states did, right? Like I said, that's why it's that quasi, like a little quasi thing. That's why we increase the wealth back to the original effective tax rates. A 20% tax rate, even on Amazon alone, could pay a SNAP benefit to every citizen. Absolutely. Absolutely. I kind of like the flat tax. Um, it's not, no, it's, I guess it's hypothetical, but I like the flat tax initiative if it could be um, initiated properly, right? If it could be done properly, then that way you would really only pay taxes on goods you buy. Like if you buy a boat, you pay taxes on that. right? Certain services you would pay taxes on, but you would have your own money to do that, and you would be able to make better choices, right, with what you spent your money on if that's what you wanted to spend your money on, and certain other assets. But then all the other taxes would have to go away, right? So there wouldn't be a federal tax, right? Because right now, if you work a 40-hour work week, 22 of your hours are going to your state and federal taxes, and you are keeping the other 18 hours, but you were expected with that 18 hours to function as if you have the whole 40. And that's the harm that's been caused by our federal government. And that's what's really not being fixed. But we have the grandstanding, right, of HR 58, like, oh my gosh. And they'll use it as a political football because this is who they are. And they know that the general public is not as informed as they should be. And they can take advantage of people and manipulate them. And it's really sad. It says the trouble with a flat tax is 10% on someone making 60,000 a year, right? Is much more harmful to someone making 600,000 a year, right? Because they can afford it. But see, and then that's where, and see the whole thing with the flat tax too. And it's, I want to say it was oh gosh, his daughter is serving as governor, Huckabee. His whole thing was to give subsidies to people who couldn't afford the flat tax. I'm like, but see, then we're back at socialism. It all comes back to something that we've been relying upon, as opposed to saying, no, we're going to figure out a way to live off of tariffs 100%, period. And you're going to leave federal tax dollars alone. The federal government, hey, you're not going to be able to be ballooned as much. You're going to have to figure out how to function without everybody's money. Yeah. States, you're going to have to figure out how to function without taking everybody's money. Hey, I'm not saying socialism is horrible. It's what it can lead to, right? Because we're in it. Because then we do it. Like in my house, I'm paying taxes, right? Let's just think about this. I'm paying, Dexter says yes. So I'm paying taxes, right, on our house every year. Taxes keep going up, right? Because, you know, houses appreciate, land appreciates, it goes up. Okay, great. But I would say of the taxes that we pay annually, my husband and I, almost, well, I would say close to 50% of those taxes go to fund schools in the area. Now, I don't have children going to school in my house. So why should I be paying taxes for schools that I'm never going to have children attend? I'm just using that as an example, right? And I'm thinking, the only people that should be paying for the schools, if they're paying taxes, should be people that have children going to school. That makes sense to me, right? And you're saying helping the destitute is bad. I'm not saying helping the destitute, it's not bad. Because see, before we had welfare, we had churches that actually took care of the community, right? We actually had other people that took care of each other in the community. We actually had a system where, people would stay home with grandma and grandpa. We had generational homes, so they didn't have to go to a nursing care home. They stayed at home. Okay. We had a system in place, but then it became a situation of greed, in my opinion. And we got away from taking care of one another. We got away from actually being real families, right? And that's how the United States used to be. It used to be like a family. We got away from that. And it's got to change. It does. Yeah. Because an educated society is a society that will grow. Absolutely. And we got away from educating people too. It says, I'd pay more in taxes if it guaranteed more educated people. I mean, that's very gracious of you. It says, why aren't the churches helping now then? Because churches have become a profit center. They are no longer a beacon, right, that people could go to for assistance. And unfortunately, with certain churches, there was so much, how should I say, very depraved things going on with molestation of children within the churches. And see, we don't talk about those dark places, but that stuff happened, right? As much as they were helping people, people were being harmed. And so churches are still there helping people. I go to a church and we serve in our church in our community. We more than just send out dollars, we actually go and serve in our food pantries. We go and serve with the schools. We get donations and we put it together, right? And we make sure that we have what the backpacks that are put together with the crayons and pencils so that children have what they need. Right now, we're having a toy drive at our church. And it kind of reminds me of the Geico commercial, because every time I go into church, I see more and more and more things around the altar. And that's where we put a lot of, what is being given so people can actually see, yes, this is what we are doing as a unified group to help other people in our community that are our neighbors that we may know or not know, so that we can benefit them in their lives. Like, that's what we need to get back to and do. But like I said, a lot of these churches, they're not set up that way. They're set up as like, let's pass the collection plate around 3 or 4 or 5 times and make sure the pastor, they're driving a Bentley, but they have people within their congregation that may not be eating. But that same person is putting in the last of their monies because they're believing God for a miracle. But you have a church that is lopsided like that, and it happens. So he said, so instead of hoping for the graciousness of myself paying for education in churches to operate as a church should, we instead make it happen through taxes and legislation. And that's what we've been doing. That's exactly what we've been doing. But the problem is people have gotten greedy, and this is my opinion, they've gotten greedy with that system. And they've done things in a way that it's lopsided, and now we see it more. That's just how it's happening, and it's very sad. But I know we'll get back to it. So with that, we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we'll get into some more of the news on the other side. So thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. And so we're now going to get into the meeting between President Donald Trump and Mayor-elect Mandani.
New York's highly controversial mayor, and this changes everything.
I feel very confident that he can do a very good job. I think he is going to surprise some conservative people, actually.
Trump's doing something very strategic here. Wait till you see what it is.
I appreciate it. Please.
I appreciated the meeting with the president, and as he said, it was a productive meeting focused on a place of
Democrats aren't
shared
gonna like
admiration
this.
and love, which is New York City, and the need to deliver affordability to New Yorkers, the 8.5 million people who call our city their home, who are struggling to afford life in the most expensive city in the United States of America. We spoke about rent, we spoke about groceries, we spoke about utilities, we spoke about the different ways in which people are being pushed out, and I appreciated the time with the president, I appreciated the conversation. I look forward to working together to deliver that affordability for New Yorkers.
Okay, by having this meeting, Trump just elevated Zoran Mandani, who says he is a socialist, to the top of the Democrat Party. And that has massive implications for future elections in this country.
But just days ago, you referred to President Trump as a despot who had betrayed the country. You said you would be his worst nightmare and accused him of having a fascist agenda.
He did say that.
Are you planning to retract any of these remarks in order to improve your relationship?
I think both President Trump and I We are very clear about our positions and our views, and what I really appreciate about the president is that the meeting that we had focused not on places of disagreement, which there are many, and also focused on the shared purpose that we have in serving New Yorkers.
Do you hear
frankly,
that?
That is something that could transform the lives of the 8.5 million people who are currently struggling under a cost of living crisis, with 1 in 4 living in poverty. And the meeting came back again and again to what it could look like to lift those New Yorkers out of struggle and start to deliver them a city that they could do more than just struggle to afford it, but actually start to live in it.
And I've been called much worse than a despot, so it's not that insulting. Maybe I think he'll change his mind after we get to work.
By having
together.
this
Yes,
meeting,
please.
Trump has basically signaled to everybody in America who cares about affordability that he and Zoran Mondami care about it to the same degree. This is a huge issue in the midterm elections, and Trump right now is setting it up so that people who are comfortable voting for Mr. Mondami, even though he's a socialist because he cares about affordability, will also be comfortable continuing to vote for the president.
New Yorkers who had voted for the president last November on
And there is
Hillside
voter
Avenue and
overlap.
Fulham Road, I asked them why. I heard again and again 2 major reasons. One was that they wanted an end to forever wars. They wanted an end to the taxpayer dollars we had funding violations of human rights, and they wanted to address the cost of living crisis.
Mr. President,
Look at 'em all.
you've threatened to send federal troops to New York City.
Oh, yeah.
You both have differences when it comes to ICE agents in New York City. Mr. Mondani, you've called ICE a rogue government entity. I wonder how you reconcile your differences on both of those issues.
Well, I think we're going to work
Yep.
them out. And I
Gonna
think
work
that,
together.
If we have
Figure it out.
known murderers and some very bad people, we want to get them out. And the mayor wants to have peace. We discussed this at great length, actually, maybe more than anything else. He wants to have a safe New York. Ultimately, a safe New York is going to be a great New York. If it's not safe, no matter how well we do with pricing and with anything else, we can talk about anything you want. If you don't have safe streets, it's not going to be a success. So we're going to work together. We're going to make sure that if there are horrible people there, we want to get them out. I think he wants to get them out maybe more than I do. So we'll work together. We discussed it at great length.
So you've got to understand something. If Trump were to have this meeting and Trump were to alienate Mr. Mamdani or go to war with him in some way, that's just going to push voters away. That's just going to make people think, you know what? These politicians, they don't actually care about solving my problems, my quality of life problems, my high rent, my unaffordable groceries. But by doing this, Trump is totally squashing that. He's eliminating the argument that only one political party in this country cares about affordability, and he's doing it way ahead of schedule. But now the implication is you are going to have people who vote for Mr. Mamdani, who voted for Trump previously, and then vote for candidates like Trump again in the future. The idea that people are voting along party lines is gone after this meeting.
And too often politicians are looking to lecture to New Yorkers what they should care about as opposed to listen. And when we spoke to those voters who voted for President Trump, we heard them speak about cost of living. We focus on that same cost of living, and that's where I am really looking forward to delivering for New Yorkers in partnership with the president on the affordability agenda.
And I think we have to.
You can't underestimate the voter overlap here.
In getting the prices, because we've gotten fuel prices way down, but it hasn't shown up in Con Edison.
I want to ask the mayor-elect about a House resolution just passed overwhelmingly to condemn socialism, including with 86 Democrats, all of House Dem leadership, and the minority leader, Hakeem Jeffries, despite his endorsement of you. What's your reaction to that?
I have to be honest with you, I've focused very little on resolutions. Frankly, I've been focusing...
Condemn socialism.
I understand. I think the focus is on the work at hand. I can tell you I am someone who is a democratic socialist. I've been very open about that. And I know there might be differences about ideology.
He's not hiding.
The place of agreement is the work that needs to be done to make New York City affordable. That's what I look forward to.
And I want to clarify your answer to Stephen Nelson. He asked about your comment calling the president a fascist. And your answer was... Both President Trump and I have been clear about our positions and our views. Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about...
That's okay. You can just say yes.
Okay.
It's easier. It's easier than explaining it. I don't mind.
Mr. President, I wanted to ask you also
this is
about
huge.
this Ukraine plan.
This is going to tell voters that they don't have to be afraid of supporting one political party over the other. It's okay to cross the aisle. It's okay to vote for the other team if you like the candidate. And that is huge because typically people want to vote straight ticket. Typically people want to vote straight down the middle. But now that's all going away. The era of political parties may be gone after this meeting, and that's what nobody's talking about.
Mr. President, the cost of living is something that you and Mr. Mamdani seem to agree on. Democrats have run New York City for a long time, Mr. Mamdani. Do you see Democrat policy specifically as being a problem? And I'd like that be a question that both of you could answer in New York City.
Look, I think that there are many things in our city where we have to own the responsibility of it, things that existed long before the president was the president. And those are also part of the message of our campaign, was to take on a broken politics of the past. And I ran against a number of candidates who represented different versions of that past. And what we found time and again is that working people were left behind in the politics of our city. And what we're looking to do is put those people right back at the heart of our politics so that we don't have a situation where we're in the wealthiest city in the history of the world, and yet 1 in 5 can't even afford $2.90 for a Metro card.
It's crazy.
You know, we had some interesting conversation, and some of his ideas really are the same ideas that I have. But a big thing on cost, you know, the new word is affordability. Another word is just groceries. You know, it's sort of an old-fashioned word, but it's very accurate. And they're coming down high. They were, you know, we had, both of us, we had the highest inflation in the history of our country the last 4 years under the Biden administration. And we've got inflation down now to a normal number. It's going to go even a little bit lower than that. Katie, do you have something?
Mr. President, thank you so much. Mr. Mamdani often talks about New York City being covered by international law, that they will follow international law.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't often
this is
talk
interesting.
about the U.S. Constitution. What is your response to that?
They're all trying to make them fight.
I don't know what you're referring to in terms of it can be covered by international law, local law. It's covered by a lot of laws, but it's covered by U.S. law. Are you referring to anything in particular?
He just says that they're a city that endorses and enforces international law.
He has to beat back the attempts to get them to fight.
Would you want to respond to that?
I think what I've shared with the president is our desire,
and he's giving him
not
ground.
Only follow the laws of our own city, laws that protect
building
New
him up
Yorkers,
as the
but
leader
also
of the Democrats.
Desire for consistency in our politics across the board, and that's something that we've talked about, and something that I know many New Yorkers want.
After this meeting, every Democrat in the country is going to have to get behind Zoran Mamdani, who has said that he's a socialist and has policies that in the past have never worked. Now, if he can work with Trump and good things can happen in New York, I am all for that. I think everybody is for that. But it totally flips the landscape around here. These moderate Democrats, I think they're gone. I think they're dinosaurs after this.
We were with ICE then?
We discussed ICE and New York City, and I spoke about how the laws that we have in New York City allow for New York City government to speak to the federal administration for about 170 serious crimes. The concerns that many New Yorkers have are around the enforcement of immigration laws on New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs, and most recently we're talking about a mother and her 2 children, how this has very little to do with what that is.
Mr. Mamdani,
What we did is we discussed crime, more than ICE per se. We discussed crime, and he doesn't want to see crime, and I don't want to see crime. And I have very little doubt that we're not going to get along on that issue. He wants to, and he said some things that were very interesting as to housing construction, and he wants to see houses go up. He wants to see a lot of houses created, a lot of apartments built, etc. And you know, we actually people would be shocked. But I want to see the same thing.
And that's what's so shocking about this meeting. Everybody expected this to be some sort of boxing match. Everybody expected this to be some sort of war between America and the Soviet Union, but that's not what it is. Trump has done what I think is something very smart by not alienating people who may have voted for both him and Mr. Mamdani, by focusing on affordability and making it look like he wants to work with the Democrat Party. Here he is with the new head of the Democrat Party right here, a new rising force on that side. And he says, look, I want the same things. I want a better life for Americans. He wants a better life for Americans. We're going to try to figure it out. And you've got to understand something. Forget the partisan politics. People want to feel like their government is working for them. For so long, people have felt like their government works against them. This is putting an end to that.
Now, the anti-Israel protesters.
Oh, anti-Israel. Now they're going to bring up Israel.
Policies as well that Mayor-elect Mondami talked a number of times about on the campaign was shifting the tax burden for property taxes
from
taxes. What he called minority communities to white-based communities and putting more taxes on white people. I also noticed in your acceptance speech you didn't mention anything about America.
See, they're friends. This is a good meeting.
And so I didn't know if that was one of the policies that you guys had spoken about.
We focused on affordability. We focused on the cost of living crisis. What I will say is that I am very much interested in property tax reform because what we see right now in New York City is a system that is so inequitable that it can't even stand up in court.
Right.
And the president and I spoke about the importance of not only building more housing, but also making sure that regulation of housing is something that is manageable to actually get through and not the cause of yet another weight that we see in our
city. But to be clear, you're continuing this idea of race-based property taxes.
No, to be very clear,
that's what you said.
No, the use of the term was a description of neighborhoods, not a description of intent.
He's talking about how in New York City you have areas where property values have exploded, like in Lower Manhattan, where the property taxes on those buildings are actually less than buildings that look similar but just happen to be in Brooklyn and Queens. And what he means here is rearranging the deck, so to speak. His terms were very inflammatory. I think that was on purpose to help win an election, but that election's over.
So you intend to tax the whiter neighborhoods more?
No, we intend to create a fair property tax system because we want a New York City that is not only fair and equitable, but also one that every New Yorker can afford.
Fascinating. They're getting along.
Please, go.
Mr. Mondani, anti-Israel protesters just targeted a synagogue in New York. Are you concerned about Jewish New Yorkers feeling welcome and safe in the city? And President Trump, you've threatened to cut off federal funding to New York City. What policies would prompt you to do that?
It's Trump and Mondami against the media. That's the narrative of the room.
Well, I think if we didn't get along, whether it's cut off or just make it a little bit difficult or not give as much, we want to see, I use the term, we don't want good money going after bad. Right. We don't want that to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. I did say, subject to what policies are being set. We had a meeting today that actually surprised me. He wants to see no crime. He wants to see housing being built. He wants to see rents coming down, all things that I agree with. Now, we may disagree how we get there, the rent coming down. I think
socialism versus capitalism.
One of the things I really gleaned very much today, he'd like to see him come down, ideally by building a lot of additional housing. Yeah. That's the ultimate way. He agrees with that, and so do I. But if I read the newspapers and the stories, I don't hear that.
Is Mondami really a socialist?
Today, and I think that's
the question.
Positive step. No, I don't expect. I expect to be helping him, not hurting him. A big help, because I want New York City to be great. Look, I love New York City. It's where I come from. I spent a lot of years there. Now I'm right here. We took a big setback with the mayor that we had, Dame de Blasio.
Who wouldn't work with Trump.
Tremendous setback for the city. I think this mayor can do some things that are going to be really great.
It's almost as if Trump is hosting a foreign dignitary with views that are totally contrary to how things normally work in America, but isn't denigrating that person and is saying, look, I think we can work something out. Like, think of a meeting between Trump and Putin, or Trump and Kim Jong-un. That's what the style of this meeting is here. That, hey, we're not enemies. We don't have to be enemies. We might have massive differences that are huge. Capitalism, socialism, big differences, but there's a way to get things done. And at the end of the day, the president's a deal maker. And by having him and Zoran Mondami on the same side of the aisle, literally, that's this shot right here. Them on one side, the media on the other. It's setting up something that's probably going to make Democrat voters who are rabid socialists and hate President Trump very upset.
Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. You're a billionaire. You have a different address nowadays than you used to, but you used to call New York City home. Would you feel comfortable living in New York City under a Mamdani administration?
Yeah, I would. I really would. Especially after the meeting. Absolutely.
What makes you
We agree on a lot more than I would have thought.
Democrats are going to hate this.
I want him to do a great job, and we'll help him do a great job. He may have different views, but in many ways, we were discussing when Bernie Sanders was out of the race, I picked up a lot of his votes, and people had no idea.
Right.
Because he was strong on not getting ripped off in trade and lots of the things that I've practiced and been very successful on. tariffs, a lot of things. Bernie Sanders and I agreed on much more than people thought. And when he was put out of the race, I think quite unfairly, if you want to know the truth, many of the Bernie Sanders voters voted for me. And I felt very comfortable, frankly, in seeing that and saying that. And, you know, it just turned out to be a statistical
Trump
truth.
is
but
piling dirt
no, I feel
on
very
the tomb
of
the liberal Democrat Party.
Being in New York, and I think much more so after the meeting. Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question for you, but a very quick one for the mayor. Why did you fly here? Aren't trains greener?
I use every form of transit, and I want to make sure that they're all affordable in New York City, and that's why making buses fast and free is a centerpiece of our campaign.
There is a bus that goes.
Well, I know, but if he flew, that's a lot quicker too. No, I mean he's working very hard.
What a dumb question.
It
wasn't a dumb question. It was a question of, hey, a lot of socialists, they always complain, especially socialists with I want to say the Mandani mindset, but like a Ocasio-Cortez, you know, the Green New Deal, they're like, yeah, we need to make sure that there's no carbon and all these other things. And that's what that reporter was getting at. It was like, why don't you take the bus, since that's a greener form of transportation, as opposed to taking a plane? It's very hypocritical. And a lot of them are hypocrites. The ones that claim to be like, oh, we need to be greener, who will take a Lear jet like Gavin Newsom to Brazil to go to a meeting to say how greener things need to be and how carbon taxes need to be applied to everybody else but him. Right? It's that stuff. And sincerely, Lois, thank you for reposting the stream, and good morning to you too. Thank you for joining us.
a very long drive. I'll stick up for you. You know, the plane takes you 30 minutes and driving takes you a long time.
You've accused the U.S. government of committing genocide in Gaza while President Trump was working on peace. Why that?
I've spoken about the Israeli government committing genocide, and I've spoken about our government funding it. And I shared with the president in our meeting about the concern that many New Yorkers have of wanting their tax dollars to go towards the benefit of New Yorkers and their ability to afford basic dignity. And what we see right now is we're in the 9th consecutive year of more than 100,000 school children being homeless in our city. And there's a desperate need not only for the following of human rights, but also the following through on the promises we've made New Yorkers. And I appreciated the meeting we had and the work that we can do.
Do you agree that President
Most
Trump
Americans want to see their government work for them?
Because he worked hard to do the peace in the Middle East and everywhere. What do you agree with that?
I appreciate all efforts towards peace, and I shared with President Trump that when I spoke to Trump voters on Hillside Avenue, including one of whom was a pharmacist that spoke about how President Trump's father actually went to that pharmacy not too far from Jamaica Estates, that people were tired of seeing our tax dollars fund endless wars. And I also believe that we have to follow through on the international human rights, and I know that still today those are being violated, and that continues to be work that has to be done no matter where we're speaking of.
Mr. President,
right.
Thank you, Mr. President. Do you view the mayor-elect as the true leader of the Democrat Party? And do you think Leader Schumer is a leader?
Here's the question.
Well, look, I hope they have great leaders. This is a man that right now I think is focused on New York City.
He is the leader.
I really think he has a chance to do a great job. We're going to help him, but I really think he has a chance to do a great job.
Wow.
But I'll let you answer that. You consider yourself the leader of the Democrats. I think it's more appropriate for him.
I consider myself the next mayor of New York City, and I keep my horizons firmly on New York City, and I appreciate the meeting with the president, which focused again on the 5 boroughs and whether New Yorkers could afford to live there.
No Democrats are meeting with the president. They just shut down the government and said they wouldn't meet with him. And here we have the new leader, the new face of the party, meeting with the president. This totally changes the game in ways that are going to just upset the Democrat base and force votes over to the Republican side. It's going to be very interesting to see how that works in the midterms. But listen to this.
Being the mayor of New York City is a big deal.
Absolutely.
I always said, you know, one of the things I would love to be someday is the mayor of New York City. Being the mayor of New York, and especially now, because I think you're at really a turning point, one way or the other. It could go great, or it can go in a different direction.
It is a turning point.
I think you really have a chance to make it great.
Mr. President, you say you love New York City.
Who doesn't want that?
Does New York City love President Trump?
New York City loves a future that is affordable. And I can tell you that there were more New Yorkers who voted for President Trump in the most recent presidential election because of that focus on cost of living. And I'm looking forward to working together to deliver on that affordability agenda.
Right. So the people who get votes in upcoming elections are going to be people who care about the problems average Americans suffer from. And you know what? Even if they're a socialist and their policies may not work, if they're the one that says they care, how can they lose? Especially when the other politicians are concerned about a whole bunch of other stuff and are telling people what they should care about rather than, as the new mayor said, listening to what those concerns are. They're going to go with politicians who speak to their issues, who talk about what's on the kitchen table, not what's happening somewhere else in the world.
I tell you, the press has eaten this thing up.
Yep.
You know, I've had a lot of meetings with the heads of major countries.
Right.
Nobody cares.
Everybody cares about this.
This meeting that you people have gone to,
because it's
outside
big.
You have hundreds of people waiting. This is just a small little group.
It's a big
For some
meeting.
reason, the press has found this to be a very interesting
It's historic.
meeting. The biggest people in the world, they come over from countries nobody cares. But they did care about this meeting, and it was a great meeting. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. President, I was going to ask you exactly that. Why do you think there's so much more, so much excitement around this than even some foreign leaders?
Because I think he's different.
Yep.
All right, I think he's different, and that can be in a very positive way. But I think he's different than, your typical
Your
guy
Chuck
runs,
Schumers.
wins, becomes mayor maybe, and nothing exciting. Because he has a chance to really do something great for New York. New York is at a very critical point.
The country's at a critical
He does need the help of the federal government to really succeed, and we're going to be helping him. But he's different than, your average candidate. He came out of nowhere. I said he has a great campaign manager standing over there. He came out of nowhere. Would you start off at 1 or 2? And then I watched. I said, who is this guy? He was at 1. Then he was at 3, then he was at 5, then he was at 9. Then he went up to 17. I said, that's getting a little bit interesting, right? And then all of a sudden he wins a primary that nobody expected he was going to win.
He's congratulating him.
A great tribute. I mean, it's an amazing thing that he did.
Right. He's not putting him down.
I'm sorry, I'll just add one thing to what the president said. Is one thing I also appreciated is in our meeting to appreciate a portrait of FDR and the incredible work that was done with the New Deal, and also in thinking about what it can look like when the federal government and New York City government work together to deliver on affordability. It can be transformative.
We have a great portrait of FDR that I found in the vaults that was missing for years. I found it, and I put it up. He's a Democrat, to the best of my knowledge. He's a Democrat. And when the mayor saw that portrait, he said, "Sir, do you mind if I have a picture taken by that portrait?" It's an amazing portrait. I hope the picture comes out good. But it's an amazing.
And Uncle Coldwater says, "Good morning, Ian." And he says, while the New York better buckle up and hold on, because the Democrats getting ready to come after him and call him a traitor to their party. And it's interesting because as much as he's trying to get them a win, right? Because right now they're frenemies, right? Let's just be honest. They're frenemies. They're not friends. They're not enemies. They're frenemies. Okay. But Donald Trump is like, I do not want New York to fail. I'm not just going to sit back and watch it implode and explode. I want to make sure that New York is better, right? And then here you have the Democratic Socialist mayor who's made his stance. He's like, I want to make it better too. And President Trump's like, well, let's see what he can do. And if he needs my help, I'll give him the help he needs, because it's more about the people. And this is what Cash is saying that nobody's talking about. Because these two are actually trying to get on the same page, because it needs to be about the people. You may not like Mamdani, and there are different reasons I think that people are reserving judgment, especially, myself. I'm reserving judgment because I see how much you're pushing immigrants over Americans. So I'm really waiting to see what you are going to do for the Americans in New York City and how you're going to make their lives better, right? Because you keep talking about immigrants. I have yet for you to say the lives of the American people. So you keep talking about New Yorkers, but you're not talking about the Americans. And that's where I'm at. That's my measure. That's my bar. I don't live in New York, but I know people that do, right? And I definitely want to see every city within the United States do well. I do not want anybody to come to harm or have their cities fall apart. I mean, let's just be honest. And Uncle Coldwater says Trump is a New Yorker. Of course, he wants a city that his whole legacy was birthed into to win. Absolutely. But these demons will not meet with Trump on no occasion. I hope it works out well because that party needs to be destroyed and relieved that the party that's against all Americans and revealed, yeah, that the party that's against all. Yeah, so like I said, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. And let's finish this out. We got like just a couple more minutes.
Important room. So he's a big fan of the New Deal, I guess, and of FDR. Yes, ma'am.
That's the other thing I wanted to say about FDR. You know, they were talking about, oh yeah, the New Deal. Did the New Deal help certain communities? It didn't. It actually really set up socialism to another degree in our country, right? That's where welfare came in. That's where Social Security came in. That's where a lot of these social safety net programs that we have now came in. And unfortunately, the programs were not used to really help all Americans. They were used to help certain Americans. So yeah, as much as people look at FDR as this great, president, I'm just kind of like, he stayed in there longer than he needed to, but that's because they were involved in a war, right? But did his policies really benefit everybody? And, the Great New Deal, it was not designed to help everybody. So like I said, I find it fascinating that they're lauding that particular president.
President, you said that you both spoke about crime. There are many police officers set to come off the rolls at the end of this year in New York City.
That might change.
Are you going to allow those police to be replaced with police officers, actual cops? And are you going to require that happens? Would there be some consequence if the staff
happens? But again, it's going to be ultimately the mayor's decision.
What's your answer?
Is that I look forward to delivering public safety with the NYPD, and I've said over the course of our campaign that we have the number of police officers today. They are the ones that's budgeted about 35,000 headcount. And I think the key thing is that we have to make it easier for police to focus on police work, not ask them to respond to 200,000 mental health calls a year.
This is what I was mentioning earlier. Trump is setting Mr. Mamdani up to have total responsibility for the success or failure of New York City in the near future. And if this succeeds, if it succeeds, great. But socialism is going to be tied to a lot of these viewpoints. Will that work? Hasn't worked at any other time in the entire world. It's failed everywhere it's tried. So a very interesting dynamic is being set up here where Trump can basically say, hey, I told the mayor what I thought he should do. I let him make his own decisions. It worked. It didn't work. I think many of you watching already have an opinion on whether or not socialism is going to work out for New York City. I have my opinion on that. I don't think it's going to, but I do think that the idea of people working together, that if Trump can go and work with Kim Jong-un, how can he not work with the mayor of New York City, right? How can he not do that? Interesting times are ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, very interesting times are ahead. And Michonne says, I'm a suffering Democrat. She said, Democrats' rights for American New Yorkers. She says, he's a fall guy. Okay. Interesting that you would see him as a fall guy. But that could possibly happen, right? It could. Oh, and Sassy Lady, thank you so much for joining us and reposting the stream. And Michonne as well. Yeah, he could be a fall guy. Because like I said, it is still very fascinating, very interesting that we have someone who is claiming to be a democratic socialist. And people are like, what does that really mean? And I'm really grateful that Thomas asked the question, like, well, define socialism. I'm going back to how different groups define socialism in practice, right? So for the Republicans, this is what they call socialism: almost any government expansion of welfare state or regulation, right? And some examples might be Medicare for All, Green New Deal, student debt relief. Now, that's interesting because they can say, okay, that's a form of socialism. But if you look at ICE agents were offered a bonus, they were offered education, but they were also offered student debt relief. Oh, do we not know that? Yeah. That was one of the bonuses that they were being offered. So here you're saying student debt relief is socialist if it's done under the Biden administration. But if it's done in a different way under the Trump administration, you're not even addressing it. See, it like again, for me, it just depends on how people want to view it. Not even if it's factual, right? Just trying to get through the comments. And Michonne says his numbers don't match up to who really voted. Yeah, a lot of people are saying that. So I'm actually hoping they do a deep dive and a forensic on the actual election. They have time. They have time to do it before the beginning of the year. Hopefully, they will put forth, you know, a commission to go in there and audit the votes. And Michonne, if you're there, if you're able to go into New York and request the FOIA for the votes, go to the Board of Electors and actually ask for a forensic recount to ensure that people didn't vote more than once, because I think there was a guy, he was bragging how he voted for Mondami like 6 times or something ridiculous. He just gave, fictitious information. Maybe those things can happen, because it was interesting how he said, yeah, we have a coalition of 1 million people, but you only got 400,000 votes. And collectively, the votes were less than 500,000. And I know that off year votes, they tend to do not as well. Right. But still, to Michonne's point, the numbers don't add up. She says, I will be there. She says, I will be there. And she says, anybody could vote. Yeah. And that was the other thing, right? Because of the policies in place, that you don't necessarily have to show voter ID. I think that's the thing, like between California and New York, the whole voter ID thing as well. So I'm just saying. It's crazy. And Dr. Harriet, thank you so much for joining us this morning and reposting the stream. So I wanted to also look at like democratic socialists, right? Their view of socialism is a Nordic model, right? Bringing U.S. closer to Denmark, Sweden, or Norway. Now, I want to say in those countries, I think people pay like maybe 50% of their taxes or something crazy, but their healthcare is free. The majority of their housing is free, but everything's funded by the government. There's no ownership. Okay. Like, why would you want to live like that? So universal health care, free college, and wealth tax. So they tax the wealthy and then bring it down to those, that might be in need, but there's no ownership. Like, that's weird. Except for the ones that work with the federal government, right? If they're lucky enough to be at that status to have the corporations, which gives them their 1%, they do pay, a lot in taxes, but that's just to prop up the government. It's like, it's really not good. Mainstream Democrats, authoritarian regimes only. That's how they see socialism. Venezuela, USSR, reject the label for U.S. programs, right? So they defend Social Security, but say we're capitalists. Stop it. That's a socialist program. Now, if it was a capitalist program, when I was born, you would have given me basically almost like a trust fund or an IRA that I could fund myself over the years that you could never touch. That would be more capitalism. Okay. Just saying. And that Social Security, I could get whenever I wanted it to. So if I wanted to retire at 45, because I thought, okay, I'll be able to live off of the money that's in there 45 until whatever, and I don't have to go back to work if I don't want to, that would be on me. And I wouldn't have to be in the workforce. That's more of a capitalistic structure. That's actually what Republicans would like to do. But they want Social Security because they can dip into it and they can use it. It's more or less a Ponzi scheme right now. It wasn't a Ponzi scheme up until Clinton, because they actually had more money in Social Security than they needed. There was a surplus. Had they left it alone, we'd be fine today. But people are getting Social Security that haven't even paid into Social Security right now. So it is truly a socialist program. Crazy. Now, libertarians, virtually all government spending beyond minimal state. That's how they see socialism. So public schools, FDA, FEMA, farm subsidies. Now, got to remember, true libertarians, they want to burn it down. Okay. They're just like, nope, government, get out of our lives. Give me my money. I don't want to hear it. That's a true libertarian. Rand Paul is a libertarian. He is not a Republican. He rocks with Republicans because they have more of his value set. But he is a libertarian. He is not a Republican. So, in short, in strict theory, the U.S. is overwhelmingly capitalist with some socialist inspired programs. In U.S. political combat, socialism is mainly a scare word used to attack policies the speaker dislikes, or on the left, right, a badge some younger progressives embrace to signal support for an expanded welfare state. Now, the 2025 House resolution you asked about uses the term in the first, broadest, most polemical sense, right? That, socialism is basically right now being used to attack. But the people that are behind this resolution actually have a historical background surviving socialism that became communism. And so their whole thing is, we don't want that here in the US, which, okay, great. But are you willing to give up the 22% of taxes that you have burdened the American public with and ratify the 16th Amendment to no longer allow it and find a new funding structure for the United States that doesn't burden the taxpayer? Like, are you willing to take it that far? Because if you're not willing to take it that far, your resolution to me is it's not just symbolic, it's dumb. It's a waste of time. Because you're trying to pigeonhole people so you can say, look, see, they're communists, they're socialists. Is the president now a communist and a socialist because he met with Mamdani? And he says that there are a lot more things that they agree on than they disagree on. Is our wonderful president MAGA? Is he a socialist now? I think words matter, and people need to start really looking at what our country looks like, right? Now, do I want to make sure that people that need the assistance get the assistance? Absolutely. And there is a way to do that, right? At the state level, not necessarily at the federal level, right? And at the federal level, we actually do need more consolidation, because the better we treat our dollars, right, the more we actually can do for the people that need it, if that makes sense. So we need to be better stewards over what we have been given. This is the deck we have until we ratify the 16th Amendment that gets rid of taxing individuals, right? This is where we are. So with that, thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News. Thank you for everybody that joined me in the comments and the conversation. It was really great this morning on the Monday recap. Tomorrow we'll be back with Tell It All Tuesday, where there were some things I wanted to get to today that I didn't, but I'm just grateful that I was able to get to what I did get to. So with that, remember, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you in the next one.